to Disney Princess Deathmatch. I am Liz Stevens.
And I am Sarah Cade, and we are your hosts for this show where 14 princesses go in and one princess comes out. Or maybe more than that. I don't know, because we're actually not sure what all the grading is yet at this point.
We have no idea what's going to happen.
We're only on our second episode.
Anything could happen, you guys.
It's true. And some of those things that could happen might happen tonight.
You know? There's one way to find out, Sarah Cade.
There
Are you ready to talk
is.
about Cinderella?
Yes, we are talking about Disney's 1950 animated film, Cinderella, and I have a couple of really interesting factoids about this movie before we get started.
I am so glad that you do, because I made a mental note today to do a lot of actual research about this movie.
Right.
And then I wasn't able to because I had a lot of things happen in my life that are super exciting, involving, the studio and getting things put together and stuff. But I'm fascinated to hear what you've got to tell me, because I love this movie.
This is your favorite Disney movie, is that correct?
This is my favorite Disney movie. It is. And it's funny because I think that's the first time I've actually said that. I've always said it's my favorite. She's my favorite Disney princess. Cinderella is my favorite. Mm-hmm. But watching it again, I do think that, to me, this movie it's the epitome of Disney. This is what Disney means to me, is Cinderella.
I absolutely hear what you're saying, and I think that there is a very good reason for you to feel that way, and I imagine a lot of other people would feel that way too. So when this movie came out, Disney had not had a huge hit since Snow White. So this movie came out in 1950, and they hadn't had a big hit since Snow White, which had come out in 1937, right?
Wow.
So that's a long time. It is a very long time. Cinderella was Walt Disney's big gamble. This was going to be the thing that made or broke his studio.
Oh, Walt, thank you for taking that risk.
Yeah, they spent nearly $3 million on it.
Holy
on this
smokes.
movie.
And that's
yes.
1950s money.
And that's 1950s money, which approximates to, I don't know, all the money in today's money.
All of the money.
Possibly. If Cinderella had failed at the box office, it would have been the end of Disney Studios. We wouldn't have had, that would have been it. It would have just, there's an alternate universe somewhere where Cinderella tanked and there is no Disney.
Oh my gosh.
All they have are DreamWorks films.
A terrible, terrible world.
Yes.
I don't want to live in it.
I don't want to imagine that world. Fortunately, the movie was a big hit, and with all the money that they made from the movie's release, and then they were able to this was one of the first movies where they sold the soundtrack as well, because before that didn't used to be a thing prior to this film.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and so...
Wow, that's actually quite early for something like that. It must have been on a record, right?
I think so, yes, absolutely. And Walt Disney was able to establish his own distribution company and enter television production, and he began building Disneyland, which is why the Disneyland castle is Cinderella's castle, I think. That part may not be canon, but it certainly does make sense that the princess who saved your animation empire, it's her castle that you're going to make the Disney castle.
Well, and it's beautiful. The illustration of that castle is gorgeous.
It's
I've
really
never been
wonderful.
to Disney World or
Neither
Disneyland, but... Oh, really?
Nope, never been to either. Yep.
One day, Sarah.
One day.
Go.
Well, and Dad keeps saying, oh, are you interested in going? And we can go. And I'm like, Dad, if we are going to Orlando, Florida, we are going to Harry Potter World.
Right? That's what my family too. Yeah,
yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
We don't, I don't care about Disneyland. It sounds hot and you got to stand in lines and I can just watch the movies. That's fine. But I need to go to Harry Potter World. That's neither here nor there. The other piece of information I have about this movie, which when I read, killed me a little bit on the inside because it was so sweet and wonderful and just lovely and amazing.
Oh?
So the actress who was the voice of Cinderella, her name was Eileen Woods. And
she has a beautiful voice.
She has a lovely voice. Oh my gosh, she was so genteel and kind and wonderful. And we'll get to all that in a few minutes, I promise.
Yes.
But when she got older, she actually suffered from Alzheimer's disease. And she didn't remember that she had played Cinderella, but the nurses who worked with her said that she was very, very comforted and was made to feel better anytime that she heard the song "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes."
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Isn't that neat?
Wow.
Yeah.
What a great story.
Yeah. So those are my two stories about this movie. And also, this is not a story for the movie itself, but this is the first Disney movie that I remember that is not The Little Mermaid. I actually remembered this movie when I was sitting down and watching it. There was a lot that I remembered. So it's not like when we saw Snow White and I was like, this is like seeing a whole new movie for me for the very first time.
I didn't remember it at all.
Exactly. Didn't remember a single thing. But with Cinderella, I actually remembered quite a bit. So do you want to get started going through and starting with your notes and then we'll just see where this takes us?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think we should note that. Well, first of all, it opens up and it feels like the end, like those old movies, because it's all the credits.
Oh my gosh, I know. This
like,
is the second time we've had to do that, and I know for sure we do it one more time with Sleeping Beauty, and
right,
then we
that's
finally
true.
get away from
and
that.
It's just so weird, yeah. But as soon as we get past that, because the opening song's a little bit, it just dates itself.
Yes.
You know, it's very Perry Como. So, do you know who Perry Como is?
No.
Oh, well, it's very that.
Okay.
Anyway.
Do you know who Diplo is?
Nope.
All right, there you go.
We're very different people, you and I.
Yes, we are.
That's okay. So, but it opens up with the prologue. How do you feel about the prologue, Sarah?
I am comfortable with the prologue in this story because it is a fairy tale, and I feel like 90% of fairy tales have to have that little bit of prologue, right?
I completely agree with you.
Okay.
The reason I think I like this prologue, and it speaks to me like it does, is because it's like story time. Like I feel like someone has sat me down
Yes.
and they're telling me a story. It feels like that bedtime story, you know? It even starts once upon a time.
Right.
So I love it. I like everything about it. I also think that the illustration there, where it's more like an actual book and you can even see the words, was beautiful. And then they just all of a sudden changed it and moved into the actual animation style as they moved on. And it was lovely.
Right. I completely agree. Yeah, I really liked it. I enjoyed that it had that book that was opening up again.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And
the gilt gold book that looks real, especially in comparison.
Right. Yeah. And I think it might be real. I don't know, but I would imagine that for Snow White and Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, at least, they probably definitely had like those books, like just it was a prop that they made to film.
Oh,
you know
you
what
think
I'm saying?
so?
I do. Yeah.
Wow. That explains why it looks so real.
Yeah. I don't think that. I mean, they didn't have CGI.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not animated.
Well, that's flipping cool.
Yeah.
What a cool prop to have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I looked it up, and Cinderella is canonically 19 years old.
Oh, I'm so glad. I was going to ask
properly.
you. 19.
Yes. Yep.
That's a great age for her. Okay.
It is, yeah.
Well, I love how they're telling the little story of, you know, how she was mistreated as soon as her father died. Like, we know that right away.
Right.
And then it says, and yet through it all, Cinderella remained gentle and kind.
Mm-hmm.
That's who Cinderella is. It's like through it all, she remains gentle and kind. Like she has emotional highs and lows throughout the movie, but she remains full of hope and compassion and kindness through this whole thing. I just love her.
I totally agree with you. Yes, she is actually very standout in her personality and just who she is, except for just a little one area, which we'll get to when we get to it.
Fair enough.
But I feel like it's understandable at that point. You know, I too have had those moments in my life, Cindy, so it's, you know, it's probably fine.
Cindy. You're funny. So then we go up to Cinderella's tower where she's waking up and we see the first of her animal friends. What did you think of the sweet little birds in their clothes?
They were really cute, and that was what
they're so cute.
Yeah, and that was what I remembered. Like, I saw them, and I saw the little birdies like going over and like messing with her hair and wearing their little vests, and I was like, "This, I watched this. I remember this in my head." I thought they were really great, and then she goes and she's waking up and she starts talking and she's singing. Already her voice is a million times better than what we had with Snow White.
Snow White.
Yes.
Yeah. She has those lovely honeyed tones, a really low voice.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I like her so much. I like her song. It's A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes is the first song she sings.
Which I had forgotten that she did that. I always thought that was just a Jiminy Cricket song. So that was really interesting. Yeah, like I had forgotten that was.
I forgot about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's definitely Cinderella's song. That's the big one. That's her opening number. I was thinking about this with her song. I was afraid that as I was thinking about this, you know, a dream is a wish that your heart makes. I was like, does she actually ever do anything? Or does she just sit around and hope that things will get better for her?
Right.
So let me ask you, do you think that having faith is active? Is that
is a really interesting question, Liz.
Because that's Cinderella's bag. Like, she doesn't run off sword in hand to slay a dragon or anything, but she is faithful. She believes, you know, up until her dark moment, that if she continues in goodness, that good things will come to her. And something about that, I feel, is active because she has to wake up every morning to be completely berated by her stepsisters and stepmother. You can see that she's in a terrible, horrible routine that could make anyone either depressed and despondent or just heinously cruel back, right?
Right. Yes.
But she has stayed, and she is, ever gentle and kind because she has faith every morning. She just has faith that things will get better, that her dreams will come true. And I think maybe she should get credit for that.
I do think that it is active what she's doing, because I think that I'm thinking about people who struggle with depression, or who spiral down into that, and they don't have any hope, they don't have any faith, and so that makes them less active, because I think that it's kind of hard to find somebody who's like really struggling with depression who's also still able to get up every morning and do the work, right? So I would say that...
Right, although that's so chemical.
Well, and I'm definitely not trying to like throw shade at anybody who like struggles with that. Like, I'm not trying to say that, just be positive like a Disney princess and you'll be fine, because that's clearly not the case.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a really interesting notion, and I do think that it does take work to stay positive.
I think so too. We should give her credit for making the decision to continue to be good and continue to have hope. Cinderella, to me, is just the epitome of ladylike grace and charm.
I completely see that. Watching this movie, I completely understood why she was your absolute favorite. To me, as a little girl growing up, that is what I aspired to be like when I grew up, is just full of that same kind of grace. I mean, she just moved beautifully, and she was singing, and I felt like, okay, that's what a woman is. I want to be like Cinderella. Oh, that's really great. Aw, that's super cute. So next after that is whenever Jacques? Because
I think the whole thing, it's like they talk about a chateau, so it seems French sometimes,
but then
she's
also wearing
Dutch
clogs.
shoes.
Yeah, yes. So that's a little confusing.
So I don't really know. I don't understand
These
Europe.
other princesses' names also sounded French, but that doesn't mean anything, because you just grab them from all your other countries and bring them together, right? Europe, that's how you work. I don't know.
She's European. We're just going to leave it at that, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Jacques runs in and starts talking about how there's a new mouse, and the mice were cute. They were a little difficult to understand sometimes, and
they were. When I was a kid, I didn't realize they were speaking English, I think, until I got a little bit older, and then I realized that they were actually saying words. I mean, I could still follow the story.
Mm-hmm. Well, it occurred to me tonight that Jack especially sounds like Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, Sarah, why did you say that? I really like Jack. I'm afraid now I won't as much.
I said it because it's true.
Okay.
When he's talking about she's so sweetsa or whatever the heck it is.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I really like Jack and Gus, though. I think they're adorable.
Octavius.
But for short, we'll call you Gus.
It was so dark. Everything that Cinderella was doing through the first 10 minutes of this movie, I was like, this is just a movie about Liz. Like, I don't understand what is going on right now.
I win at life. That's awesome. Thanks, Sarah. You know just what to say.
Aw. And then, so she goes around and she goes downstairs. She's prepping breakfast for everybody else. She gets Lucifer the cat out there and gets his breakfast. First of all,
and
who
you
names
see
their cat
some more
Lucifer?
of the chateau. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, just... Why would you name your cat Satan? I don't understand.
Well, if you're the evil stepmother, Lady Tremaine.
I guess so. Hey, I'm super duper evil. In case you can't tell, I named my cat Satan. So, yeah.
Indeed. Well, we saw more of the chateau then, too, which also was like, whenever I would picture my dream house, it was the Cinderella chateau.
Oh, you just wanted to live in a French
Did you ever
cottage.
Draw pictures of dream houses when you were a kid? Did you ever do that?
No, of course not.
No, you were slaying dragons, of course, because you're awesome. I was drawing dream houses, and they looked a lot like the chateau, with the big, tall, super high curtains. And oh yeah, definitely.
And so then she goes down and she starts talking to the dog, Bruno, and it occurred to me, the first dog that my family owned when I was a part of our family was a big brown dog named Bruno.
Oh.
And I think that it might have been because of this movie. There's a picture
Bruno's
of me.
A sweet dog.
And apparently our Bruno was also a sweet dog. There's a picture of me. I'll have to get it up on Twitter for everybody to see by the time this episode drops. Of me when I'm like Riley's age, sitting down on the floor next to Bruno's dog bowl, and I am feeding Bruno. But apparently I also was eating the dog food. And Mom and Dad thought that was fine. Yeah, I was like, a piece for Bruno, a piece for me. A piece for Bruno, a piece for me. It's got protein in it. She's probably fine.
It's probably mostly cornmeal. You're fine.
I I was 2. Anyway, so I thought that was really great. And then whenever Cinderella's talking to Bruno, and she's like, "Oh, well, you know what you got to do in order to stop having those dreams about chasing Lucifer, right? You just got to learn to like cats." And I was like, "Oh, she is sassy.
She's sassy too, right?"
Yes.
I love that. Yeah, and she's sassy with Lucifer too.
Oh,
it's not my idea to feed you first, Your Majesty. So I do like that. That she's not. What did we talk about? Mary Sue.
Yes.
Like she's got a little bit of sass and a little bit of personality, and she's not just like
she's not
sweet
just a
it
wet
hurts your
blanket.
teeth.
Yeah, it's not saccharine in the way that Snow White was
Saccharine, yeah.
saccharine. Although we also discussed that Snow White did have a bit of sassiness, but
Disney princesses, I think, historically have always been sassy. And I'm
guess
all right with that. As
That's-
long as you can be sassy and still be kind and gracious in the way that Cinderella could.
Right.
Cinderella, you're my girl, and I love you.
I believed Cinderella's like sassiness more than I believed Snow White's. Does that make sense? Cinderella seemed more sincere in her sassiness, more playful, more gentle. It seemed like maybe we were kind of trying to reach with Snow White, but I don't want to. I mean, obviously, this entire podcast is about comparing one princess against another. But right now, we're talking specifically about Cinderella.
Yes.
So I wrote down in one of my notes, clogs again, whenever she's out there and she's feeding the chickens and all this stuff.
Yes.
Oh, and then when she's carrying the trays and like has one of them on her head, like,
isn't she
dang,
amazing?
Girl. Yeah.
She is woman.
Hear her roar.
Love her. Yeah.
She's crazy.
Yeah, totally cool. Makes it look easy. And everybody's hollering at her and all the bells are ringing and she's just keeping it cool and calm and, not spilling a thing, not getting flustered, not getting frustrated.
Right.
She's amazing. I really like her.
Yeah, she impressed me very, very much.
And then there's the whole sequence with Gus and Jack and the mice trying to get to the chicken feed and distracting Lucifer. And I was so surprised then with how much they used the music underneath.
Oh, yeah.
The music was telling the story so much that even being out of the room, I think that you could follow at least a little bit. It reminded me of like Peter and the Wolf.
Oh,
like
yeah.
where
I
the
hear
music
exactly what
really
you're saying.
tells the story. So that was really interesting. And I'll tell you what, captivated Corbin, who's 3.
Oh, really?
He was completely captivated by that whole sequence, which really surprised me because there's no talking at all. Or just about none.
I'm glad that he enjoyed it because I personally felt like we hit the mice being wacky around the cat one too many times.
That's fair.
But that's, I mean, I'm a cynical grown-up adult and I'm just like, just give me my narrative. This is doing nothing for me.
Well, then she goes up to deliver the food to Lady Tremaine, and we see her for the first time, and she's kind of like, well, not for the first time, but we see their relationship for the first time. It's her first lines that we get, and she's just kind of, she's dark in the shadows of the bed, and then the light kind of comes in. Oh, and she's so sinister. Her eyes are kind of glowing acid green.
Yeah. The coolest thing about that scene, though, is that no matter what was going on, no matter what Lady Tremaine was saying, no matter how she was behaving, Cinderella never once cowed before her. Like, Cinderella kept her head up high and, like, standing up straight the entire time, going into the room, even trying to talk with her, leaving the room. Like, not once was this girl cowed by this woman who has been her abuser for the last, like, I mean, if she's 19 now and we can assume that her father died at 9, then the last decade?
It's amazing.
So then she leaves and we cut to
the castle and the king and the duke.
The castle and the king and the duke. And the movie Moulin Rouge has completely ruined me because I cannot hear the words the duke without thinking of the duke from Moulin Rouge.
Yes,
so that was really confusing. But no, it was fine. There is something about like Disney viewing so far. I mean, we didn't see any of these fathers in Snow White. Basically, all the men were dead.
No, there were no fathers.
But we'll see a portly king with a really awesome mustache again in Sleeping Beauty.
Sleeping Beauty, yeah.
And there's just something about Disney kings and like beards. Like men have beards in the Disney world.
Men have facial hair.
Men of power have facial hair.
King. I think he's adorable.
Really?
I think
he's
going to be
crazy.
Well, he's emotional and he's a little bit unstable. But he's darling. And the whole thing is that, his son has grown up. He's missed that connection, and now he wants him to get married so he can have grandchildren to play with, And I think he's adorable. And
one of my notes here, whenever it's going through and he's talking about how his son has grown up or whatever, and you get to the last one with the prince on the horse, like, That painting is like 100 feet tall, right?
It's so cool.
It's a ridiculously huge painting.
That palace is like the pictures I have seen of Versailles, where you're like, there is no way that there can be a place that's actually as massive and ornate as this. Surely you guys are lying. And it's, ridiculous. Yeah, that painting is insane.
So then after that, we get to one of the most iconic scenes in the entire film, which is whenever Cinderella is scrubbing the floor, and it's the bubble scene. The bubble's popping up, and she's singing.
Sing, sweet nightingale. Sing,
that's the one.
Sweet nightingale. I don't think I ever blew bubbles when I was a kid, and I did not sing that song. There was never a time.
That is the cutest thing I've ever pictured.
Single time I blew bubbles, I sang Sing, Sweet Nightingale.
That's fantastic. And of course that endeared this movie to me a little bit more because, Enchanted did the homage to that so directly.
Oh, they did. Yes.
And so I was like, oh, this is making me think of another thing that I love. So,
well, I'm going to go a little deep with this.
Okay.
Because what I really loved about this is that all the bubbles come up. And again, she is stuck in the drudgery of her life. And she is as content as a human can be in the position that she has been in. And to me, the fact that when the bubbles came up, she starts harmonizing with herself, to me was really beautiful because it's like she has befriended herself. Does that make sense?
I think so,
She's so lonesome, but she's content with her identity. I don't know. Something about it was really lovely to me, and I just thought it was beautiful.
Apparently that having the actress harmonizing with herself, that was one of the first instances of that ever being recorded.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
That is cool. And they had the additional visual, which made it work.
Right.
Probably it would have been weird otherwise if that was the first time.
Yeah. And so then we get the decree from the king that he's going to be throwing this party and inviting all of the eligible women.
She starts running after Lucifer with the broom, which I really liked. She got good and pissed off. I appreciate that about you, Cinderella.
And then the king is throwing this ball, and so he's sending out the decree, and I laughed a whole lot whenever Lady Tremaine was talking about how every eligible young lady in the kingdom gets to come to this party, and then I think it was Anastasia goes, oh, I'm so eligible.
And I'm so eligible. I know, it's a great line. Well, and then we get again, Cinderella's like, well, that means I can go too. And I think
that was my note.
Also,
she stands up for herself. Absolutely.
She stands up for herself. And it's another time where we see that her identity has not been changed by the opinion of her stepmother and stepsisters.
Right.
Like she knows that she is still of worth and inherently has value. And that's huge. That shows such strength of character.
She knows her value.
Yeah.
Like Peggy Carter.
Like Peggy Carter, ladies and gentlemen.
Thought
someone
you were
else
drop
I
the
adore.
F-bomb there, and I'm really disappointed that you didn't.
You knew.
I did.
You love me, Sarah. I didn't because little girls everywhere are going to want to listen about Disney princesses. I don't want them to have to hear
No,
F-bombs.
but no. Everybody knows now, though. But
Peggy Carter.
Yes. I knew exactly what that intake of breath meant.
Absolutely. Oh, that's awesome.
It was at this point that one of my notes says, and it's right whenever she's, doing her chores and the mice are starting to get her dressed together for her and all that stuff. And I just wrote this
Those
movie.
mice are such great friends.
Yes.
You wrote what? I'm sorry.
I just wrote down that this movie is delightful. This movie is quite charming.
Isn't
it really just charmed me very much.
Yep. Yeah. It's darling.
And
that
then we
dress,
have
though, when she first pulls it out and it's gathered funny at the bottom, was that ever an actual fashion thing? Is that just how you store a dress in a trunk? I don't understand. That was a really weird looking dress at first.
I have nothing to say here.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course you don't know.
No.
I'm just curious because it was weird. But the first thing the mice did was snip that. That's ugly.
Yeah.
Which I
Get
appreciated.
that out of here.
So maybe that's just how you store a dress so it doesn't take up so much space. I don't know. Maybe it's the 13th century equivalent of a vacuum bag. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? This is nothing, right? This was again where I felt like we hit the cat, joke one too many times whenever Jacques and Gus are having to go and get the beads and stuff. And it felt like it took a long time for me. It just felt like it dragged.
A while. But again, Corbin thought it was really funny.
I'm sure he did.
He did that huge belly laugh. Mm-hmm. It was pretty cute.
I'm so glad that he's enjoying all these Disney princess movies. That makes me really happy.
Me too. Although when I first put it on, he said, no, I don't want to watch Princess. Which was great because I said Cinderella and he knew Cinderella was a princess. He's like,
that's
no.
too funny.
He came around.
No. Whenever Cinderella is still having to do all of the chores and stuff, and oh gosh, my note here says that Cindy does not let people push her around.
No.
But she's gentle about it. Like, she's not...
Yes.
She isn't abrasive, but she's not about to let somebody... She will not let her stepmother, like, just tromp all over her or let her stepsisters tromp all over her. She will do as they are asking because she's a kind of gentle soul. She doesn't let them just completely rule over her, which is very impressive. So impressive.
Right. Well, because Lady Tremaine comes out and she says, "Oh, you're not ready, child."
That's right.
And that's a great time for her to just lose her flippin' cool and say, well, of course I'm not ready. You pile all this extra stuff on me. You did it on purpose and it's not fair.
Right.
But all she says is, I'm not going. Have a good night.
Yeah, I think that was
Super
it.
classy, Cinderella. Super classy.
Yes, that is
strong.
because then Lady Tremaine, says, have a good night or whatever and shuts the door. And that was when I wrote down, this lady is a grade A, very mean person.
That's right. She is.
She is terrible.
She's not nice.
This is a very wicked stepmother. I mean, granted, she's not as wicked as the evil queen in Snow White who was straight up trying to kill a girl, but I mean...
Right.
It's hard.
But emotional manipulation
is also very terrible.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Cinderella goes back up. They've got her dress done. She gets her dress, and it's
Sweet,
lovely, and it's really sweet and cute. The animals are great. So she comes downstairs, and then Lady Tremaine gets six of the girls on her, and they are ripping.
That's exactly
what
happened.
A really intense,
right?
Like, she got ravished, basically.
It was
like her
very
stepsisters,
upsetting to me as a child.
It was very upsetting to me as an adult.
Yes.
It was really hard. It was hard to watch. It was very difficult to watch. Go ahead.
So I was going to say, and then Lady Tremaine says, "Girls, I won't have you upsetting yourselves."
Yeah, because she's kind of the worst. Oh, she's so bad.
The worst.
She's really terrible. Yeah.
And just closes the door. Good night. Ugh.
Yeah.
And they finally broke her. They broke Cinderella.
Yeah, so she runs off crying, and I did not begrudge her that at all. I, too...
You can't lose any points.
Right. No, Cinderella, I, too, have been so upset that I literally ran away from a situation weeping before.
Yeah.
So I get you. I've been there, girl.
That's all you can do. And then the song "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes" starts playing softly in the background, and she starts saying to it, "No, it isn't
not true. Yeah.
It's no use. I can't believe, not anymore. There's nothing left for me."
Right.
So sad.
It was
Dark
very
moment.
sad. Yes.
Yep.
But then, fortunately, her fairy godmother shows up, and then we
Fairy
get
godmother,
bibbity bobbity boo, and we're turning everybody into. We're turning mice into horses and horses into carriagemen and dogs into footmen and a pumpkin into a coach, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful and it's lovely.
Have you ever seen Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella the musical?
No, I don't think so.
This sequence is adorable in that musical. I like
really?
Bibbidi Boppity Boo, but that's the sequence that I really, really love is from that one. Although I love the fairy godmother in this animated classic because she's flipping adorable.
She's really great.
Super cute. Yeah. She's like that sweet old lady next door. She's just great.
Yeah, the fairy godmother is really cute. She's really sweet. Fun fact, the woman who voices the fairy godmother in Cinderella voices Flora in Sleeping Beauty.
As soon as you started to say it, I thought, Flora, that's got to be her. Okay, cool. All right, we'll get to that next time, I suppose. That's awesome.
True, yeah. So that was really cool and really sweet. And so
she's so cute. Well, and I thought that whole sequence was just magical too.
It really is. Absolutely. Like I can
love the
definitely
pumpkin,
see.
especially the dancing pumpkin. Something about that pumpkin coming to life and then turning into the carriage.
What's funny is I remember watching that as a little kid and being kind of freaked out by it. I was like, pumpkins
I can
should
see that.
stay in pumpkin patches. They should not be dancing towards me.
You know what freaked me out when I was a kid, just a little bit, is when she first finds Gus in the trap.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, he's naked. That poor little mouse is naked, and all the other mice have clothes on. He must be so embarrassed.
That's the cutest thing. Oh, my gosh. Everything. I'm so happy for this episode because I just get to picture you being so darling.
I was a pretty cute kid.
Heck, well, I mean, if your kids are any indication,
right?
They're very darling. I love them deeply. So then Cinderella gets her dress, like the dress.
Yes.
And I gotta say,
it's time to talk about the dress.
That is a dang fine dress. I mean,
right?
It's so good.
Right?
That has got to be the second only to Belle. That has got to be the most classic Disney dress of all of them.
I would not second it to Belle. I like Belle's
really?
dress, but Cinderella's dress has and will always be my ultimate favorite. I love it. And can I ask you something, Sarah?
Yeah.
Did that dress look blue to you?
No, it looked mostly white.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That dress is not blue, and I do not know what happened where all of a sudden, all of the Cinderella dresses that you can buy as a child are blue.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you know that my sweet mom, our Mama Patronus, made me a princess dress when I was a little girl? And it was white, like Cinderella's.
That's
was not blue.
so sweet. Oh my gosh.
She made it out of a bed sheet. And
That's awesome.
Spun around completely. That was a big deal to me. It had to spin around, or else I wasn't going to wear it. So I wore this dress to literal death, the death of the dress, when it got caught in bike gears and just like completely.
You were riding your bike and wearing your Cinderella princess dress?
I wore my princess dress every day. I was a princess for Halloween for like 6 years in a row. And
You want to know what I was for Halloween
forever.
like 6 years in a row?
A Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle?
No, a witch. Every year I was a witch.
That's good too, though.
Yeah, I wanted superpowers.
Of course you did.
We were very different children.
We were. That's all
very
right.
cute.
We're different adults.
It's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like us.
I like us too. I think we're pretty great. And so do our listeners, I guess. But yeah, that dress was definitely white. That was not a blue dress. I don't know.
Well, and I would even say it was silver. Like, I think it was silvery.
Sure.
But
yeah,
there was the only time it looked a little bit blue is when they were at
in
the
the
ball,
shadows.
And it was
the ball.
dusk and it was shadows because the prince looked like he was wearing blue too. Although obviously he was wearing white. I don't know what happened and who made the call that her dress was blue, but it was
a bad call.
It sincerely ticks me off, Sarah.
I'm so sorry.
Frustrated as an adult. Anyway.
I feel your pain. Not about this particular thing, but there are other things that I feel your pain
there you go.
about.
Also, the simple black choker, perfect accessory.
Yeah.
Well done, Cinderella.
It was really, really great.
Also, I do happen to know this little factoid is that her transformation from the rags to the dress was Walt Disney's personal favorite piece of animation.
I'm glad you brought that up because I did read that earlier, and I think that's really just super duper sweet and really darling. Did you know that the majority of this movie, they had actually filmed so much of this movie live action in order to do the animatics of it? Like, they did almost the entire movie live action first, like filmed it, and then they did all the animation based off of that.
So interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't illustrate at all. I don't draw. You draw.
I do.
So can you see where that would be helpful?
Absolutely, I can.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm like, that's a lot of time and effort that you're putting into something that you're just going to draw anyway.
That's why people will go to classes and learn to, do life drawing, and I'll have an actual model like sit down because, I mean, you can try. I can doodle a little drawing of a person, but it is not going to be the same as if I sit and am looking at a person and actually like drawing with like a human model in front of me and trying to do that.
Okay. I get that. That makes sense.
So then we go back over to the ball. We've got the ball started. It's underway. We are just kind of glimpsing the prince from afar. I liked when the king called the Grand Duke a pompous windbag. I thought that was really funny.
I liked his monocle, the Duke's monocle.
Yeah.
I always thought that was cool when I was a kid.
Yeah, so I did enjoy that entire scene. I thought it was really cute, really sweet. Then the prince sees Cinderella and then runs off and they start having their dance. And
which is beautiful.
It was absolutely beautiful.
Day, I love a waltz.
That's yes.
I
know you
why.
do. Probably so.
And I love to actually waltz. I love to dance. So and the waltz is like, well, it's so easy once you get it too.
Yeah.
And it's just so elegant. Beautiful scene.
The note that I wrote down is that I specifically remember this scene boring me as a little girl.
Oh, not me. That's funny. I see that totally.
Yeah.
I do remember thinking, why are her lips so bright? That bothered me when I was a kid. I was like, they're so bright. Anyway, and her dress was all sparkly. I really think that this movie defined romance for me as a child. I
think it may have,
for most of my life.
That's what it's sounding like.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, this particular dance, and then they go out into the garden at night, and you see all the sparkling stars, and her dress is sparkling, and there's that beautiful bridge, and it's so intimate, even though it's completely chaste. It's lovely. And do they actually kiss, or do they almost kiss before the bell rings?
They almost kiss.
Almost
they don't
kiss.
actually kiss until they're married at the end of the film. Yeah. But they almost kiss, and then the clock strikes, and so she's got to run off. And then
broken.
the king is like, oh, well, we got to get her. And the way to do that is by sending all of these scary, terrifying black horses with riders on them.
Right?
Just like tearing
Where'd
after
they
her.
come from?
Jeez Louise.
I'd run too.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
Gosh.
for sure.
This part made me laugh so much whenever the Grand Duke brings back the glass slipper to the king, and he's like, well, the prince said that any woman who fits this shoe, the woman who fits this shoe, like, that'll be his bride. And the king is like, oh, then we'll try it on every woman in the kingdom, and whoever fits it, that's who he'll marry. And the Grand Duke says, well, what if it's not the right girl? And the king goes, well, that's his problem.
He's ready to get stuff done.
He really is. Yeah, whenever he was dreaming about his grandchildren, it was really cute and darling. And then he got kind of crazy and tried to kill the Grand Duke.
He's a little crazy.
He's a little crazy.
Yeah.
So then we go back to the chateau. Cinderella is back in her rags, which, as far as rags go, like, Snow White looked way worse for wear than Cinderella's clothes did.
For sure.
know?
Also, Cinderella's flats are, like, in style today.
Oh my gosh, as soon as I saw her flats, all I could think was, I need those shoes. Like, I don't need the glass slippers. I need those black flats. They look super comfy.
They do.
So Cinderella goes and she hears Lady Tremaine talking with Anastasia and Drizella about this new proclamation from the king.
Yes.
Cinderella goes completely love catatonic and, like, just totally spaces out, throws all the laundry back into their arms, and is like waltzing back up the stairs and all this.
See me in this.
Yeah. Goes kind of weird love zombie for a few seconds, which I felt like.
To be fair, her whole life is about to change.
That's true, but I did feel like it was a little out of character compared with the Cinderella we've seen up to this point. Like, I feel like the capable and like very self-assured and very like I mean, this was taking that girl who through all of this time has still been able to be gentle and caring and kind and like be her own friend, like what you had said earlier. This moment completely stripped that away and replaced it with the prince. I felt like.
Okay. I personally am all right with her having that afterglow because I've been there. Like the day after a date that was perfect with a guy who was perfect, and he's just so much on your mind that you're like obviously lovesick.
Okay.
So I'm okay with it, although I do see your point.
I'm not saying that like we like, totally slice her score in half or anything. I'm just saying that we keep this in mind. Because I feel like Cinderella at the beginning of the film would have been able to keep herself a little more under control and keep Lady Tremaine from locking her up in the attic.
If she'd had a little forethought, she probably would have realized, I'm going to make my life worse for myself. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I think anyway. So Lady Tremaine goes and locks Cinderella up in the attic.
Yes.
And then Jacques and Gus are like, we need to get the key. And the whole time I'm like, just use your tiny mouse hands in the lock and just, reach in there and do the thing.
They can't reach the lock.
Cinderella is right there. She can pick them up on her hand and hold them at the lock.
All right. That's possible. I just think that they're just such faithful friends.
No, absolutely. I know. And I know I'm like throwing shade here. And I actually was going to defend a point because I know that people will be like, oh, well, Cinderella, she had a glass slipper. Was there no other size 6s in the entire kingdom?
Right. But no, that's for sure. This is a terrible plan on the king and princess part.
Well, and actually it may not be because I mean, like, even if there are other size 6s, like maybe they don't have the same arch shape as Cinderella does, or maybe she's got really wide toes or really thin toes.
She has incredibly small feet.
She may be a size 4. There may be no more size 4s in that.
The slipper in her hand,
ridiculous.
It is smaller than her hand.
Yes, so her feet are smaller than her hand. Foot. I don't know. All right, everybody take your hand and put your foot up against it. My foot is a hand and a half for me.
Right?
So for my foot to be smaller than my hand, and I have weird, tiny, like, dainty Disney princess hands.
It was a heel, so a high-heeled shoe loses a little bit of length because of the arch, right? Still, small feet. This is what I'm saying.
Right, and I'm just saying that, like, if you're wearing a glass slipper, that thing is, like, specially made to fit only your foot.
Okay, that's fair.
That's what I was trying to get at. Yes.
I hear you. Okay, that's good.
It's a magic shoe, magic fairy godmother,
Magic fairy got on the shoe. Not going to fit anybody else. Yep.
Exactly. My next note just says mice are dumb.
Then she says get Bruno.
Yes.
And did you notice what happened there, Sarah?
That the little birds were able to pick up Bruno by the scruff of his neck and carry him into the house. And why didn't the birds just pick up the mice and take them with the key up to the top of the tower?
I didn't notice that, but yes, that too. Oh man, plot hole.
What did you notice?
I noticed that they straight up killed Lucifer.
Yes, that is.
They just shoved that cat out the window, and he fell several stories to his death. And I didn't even notice. Lily was like, "Oh my god, did they just kill that cat?"
Yeah, in all caps.
I was like, no,
my note just says, "Did we just kill the cat?" That's exactly what it says.
Straight up killed that cat. But
now apparently
that was a bad cat.
There's at least a direct-to-DVD sequel of Cinderella, and she shows up in, like, Sophia the First and all this stuff, and apparently Lucifer's still around. But those do not count in this podcast.
No,
this podcast only
that
counts
cat is dead.
The film,
that is a dead cat.
The one film, we don't see that cat the rest of the film. That cat is super-duper dead.
Super-duper
that
dead.
That cat died like Mother Gothel died, all right?
Yeah.
Knocked out of the window of a tower. That cat is dead. Then there's my note. Also, why didn't birds carry key, is what my note says.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, when you said, "What did they carry the mice up?" I was like, or the key. Just the key up there.
Just the key. They didn't even need to carry the mice. Exactly. Yeah, it was. And they could have even come through the window. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Also, the whole scene with Jacques in Lady Tremaine's pocket with the key, that was another thing that freaked me out as a little kid. I don't know.
Claustrophobic and like he was going to be killed and dead, and then the hot tea on his stomach. Yeah, just
all of that. I remember,
like
I'm watching those, and I thought to myself, this memory associates with me the fear of being like overly hot. And the fear of being like, it was weird. It was a weird experience to get back to this thing where I was like, this scared just the heck out of me when I was really little.
Yep. It did make me uncomfortable. That's funny.
Yeah, very, very uncomfortable.
This was my least favorite part of the movie when, everybody was trying to help her, but they were all getting stuck. And man, it was just out of the frying pan into the fire.
Oh my gosh, right?
For a long time.
Yeah. It took a really long time, a very, very long time to finally get to where Cinderella is able to get out of the tower. And then she runs down the stairs and she's like, wait, I can try on the shoe too. And it's like, so you're back with your full autonomy now. You had your cry. You're good. You got it out of your system. Everything's cool. And, now she's back. And then this was really funny.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we're about to talk about the same moment, but this was hysterical because, I remembered seeing this movie, but I didn't remember all the details of this movie. So whenever the little shoe presenter man is running over and Lady Tremaine trips him and then the shoe falls, and I just assumed that the Duke was going to catch it again, but then it shattered. I literally gasped out loud, was in literal shock. I completely forgot about the other slipper, and I was just like, what are we going to do? I know, what's going to happen? I panicked for like 3 seconds, and then Cinderella was like, "Oh, but it's all right. I've actually got the other one here, like in my apron pocket." Bad place to carry your glass slippers, I feel like. But what do I know? But yeah, my note just says, "Legit forgot other slipper."
Yep.
And then she puts the shoe on, and it fits perfectly, and she goes and she gets married, and again, her dress is amazing.
Yep, it's a beautiful wedding dress.
Yeah, really excellent wedding gown.
Clothed princess.
She truly is. Yes.
Well done, costume department.
Yeah, good job. Good job, drawers. You done drawed good. And that is the end of Cinderella, and they all lived happily ever after.
They did.
Is
even
what
the
it
animals,
says.
because she brought the animals to the palace. Did you notice?
Exactly, I did, and they were all wearing their cute little suit coats.
The derpy horse.
Yeah,
and all the
I want to know that
there.
derpy horse's story. I want to know his name at least. He seemed like a cool dude. You know who wasn't at the palace? Lucifer, because he is dead now. He turned into a kitty pancake. Oh, man. So now is the part where we grade Cinderella.
I'm so excited. Let's do it.
As a reminder for everybody, we are grading Cinderella on a scale of 1 to 5 in 6 separate categories. Our first category, and we are doing a single scale. It's not Liz's scale and Sarah's scale. We actually have to work together to come to conclusions on a single scale. Yeah.
Yes.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be just fine. So the very first category is autonomy. On a scale of 1 to 5, what do we want to give Cinderella in autonomy?
I feel like she gets a 5. You don't think so?
Well,
I mean,
I'm just trying to think.
Because autonomy is different from like
this is
being
making
an
her own
activist.
decisions. Okay,
Yeah.
making her own choices, making her own decisions. And
Yes.
while the fairy godmother did show up to help her, even during that scene, Cinderella was able to be like, excuse me, my dress. Like, I cannot go to the ball like this. Thanks. But way gentler than I did. I clearly am not a Disney princess, although I aspire to be. Do you think Black Widow counts as a Disney princess? I'm closer to that, maybe. Well, anyway, we'll talk about that later. I think I'm comfortable with a 5. Well, okay, no, because of just because of that, where she totally forgot herself about the prince, and they sort of strip her of her autonomy for just that long. I'm willing to go like a 4.5, maybe not a full 5, because they still did take away just a little bit of that. Now, on attitude, I'm going to give her a 5. Like on the next category, I absolutely am.
But we're on this category. Okay.
I know.
All right. Okay. Well, I will agree begrudgingly to 4.5.
Excellent. Oh, not 0.5, 4.5. Okay, attitude. I think she gets a 5. She's super sweet
5.
and really gentle, and
best.
she's great. She's really
amazing.
amazing. Yes.
Just
Animal.
fast.
Yeah,
she's great.
She's wonderful. Yep. Moving on. Animal companions.
I
They were
love
pretty
her animal
great, right?
companions. They're so great.
They're really excellent.
They are. The only reason I'm going to give them a 4 instead of a 5 is because they're so hard to understand sometimes.
I completely agree with you. Then her attire. She gets a 5, right?
Absolutely, she gets a 5.
Yes. You know what? We maybe should have given them bigger numbers than 5s. This might be hard.
I was thinking that, but that's okay. Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. It's too late now.
10.
We'll see.
We've always been 1 to 10.
I thought this would be easier, but yeah, we may see
we are.
like 3 films in that we have to totally change this because we're going to start getting to my favorite princesses soon, and I'm going to have a severe bias. All right. Her arias, her songs. Did we like her songs? Did we dislike her songs? The only one of hers that I really remembered was A Dream Is Your Wish Your Heart Makes, and then I guess Sing Sweet Nightingale.
That's it. Those are her only
Those
two
are it.
songs.
And then there's the one with the prince, but that
there
one's super
is,
boring.
Yeah, so This Is Love, which I forgot to tell that story because we skipped over it. So This Is Love is the song I used to sing to Lily when she was first born.
Oh, that is, oh my gosh. Oh no. Oh jeez.
Yeah.
Why would you tell me that information? Oh my golly.
I know.
Oh.
Indeed.
It was still a boring song.
Oh, you think so? It's that
Yeah, I didn't
lovely
like
waltz.
it. Yeah, no, I know. I know that you love it, but and even Sing Sweet Nightingale, well, pretty, not overly compelling for me personally.
It's true.
You know?
They're lovely songs, but they're not great songs.
Yeah.
So I guess, how do you feel about a 3?
I feel good about a 3.
Okay.
All right. Okay, and then our final category, zombie apocalypse. How would Cinderella fare in a zombie apocalypse?
Oh, I didn't even think about this.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't think... Now, granted, this is the wild card category.
It is. Let me ask you this. Can she call on her fairy godmother during the zombie apocalypse? I think she can, right? In
well, but
moments
she
of
didn't
stress
really...
and turmoil.
Okay, but here's the thing. She didn't really call on her fairy godmother so much as her fairy godmother just kind of appeared to her.
Still, she's got one in dire times.
Okay, all right.
Do you really think that fairy godmother's going to let her get eaten by zombies? This is what I'm asking.
She almost let her go to the ball in that terrible dress. I'm just saying that fairy godmother is not quite there, is all I'm saying. But the potential to call the fairy godmother is pretty nice. So, yeah, okay. Other than that...
let's say this too. What did we see about Cinderella with all of her friends and their loyalty? It's that her goodness and kindness and compassion means that whenever she is in a bind, everyone she has ever known or met is going to rush to her aid, including her fairy godmother.
Okay, all right. I'll give you fairy godmother.
Okay. I'm just saying that but that's a big deal. I mean, making yourself the kind of person where people will put their self in harm's way, as all of her friends did in this show, to help you out of a bind.
During a zombie apocalypse, I think that's actually a terrible thing to have. If you're literally asking everybody else to put themselves in harm's way vis-a-vis zombies.
She'd never ask them.
Right, but I mean, like, if they, like, this is going to be one of those situations where everyone's like, oh, we got to go and save Cinderella. And it's like, you maybe should, like, stay inside. There are zombies out there.
Okay, Sarah, if I was on my front lawn and the zombies were coming,
of course I would.
And you looked out the window,
I would save you.
Saying.
Yes.
Okay, so then
I would sacrifice myself to the zombies for you to live.
This is what I'm saying about Cinderella, is that people would sacrifice themselves for her to live.
Right, but okay, all right, so would you give me a high score or a low score for my survival during the zombie apocalypse?
Okay.
How about a 3? I propose a 3 for the fairy godmother.
4.
Why?
Because of all the reasons I just laid out. What are you
Listen,
talking about?
she
Why?
doesn't, okay, she doesn't really have any, I mean, she doesn't seem to be, I mean, like, yeah, she's super sweet, but what good is sweetness in the zombie apocalypse?
Because she inspires camaraderie.
I can give you a 3.5.
Dadgummit. Okay, 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of some later princesses where people have, like, magic powers or cast iron skillets.
Okay, all right, okay.
3, oh man, I feel like 3.5 is too high, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to you because you love Cinderella so much.
I love her. Okay.
All right, so let's see what her final score is. Math is hard.
Math
Wow! Cinderella getting a 25 out of 30, which seems impossible.
No, it's so possible. She's amazing, and I love her, and I'm so glad her score is high. She's the princess to beat.
I mean, maybe. 25 is very high. So this is, we were very surprised, last episode when we did Snow White, we were both very surprised because she got a 16.5. And one of those was because of the attitude. We were like shocked at like how actually nice she is. We need to start getting some crappy princesses up in here. Otherwise the attitude category is going to be completely worthless. Well, we'll hit Ariel at one point and then we will have to go down some,
and
much
Jasmine.
to my chagrin. Ugh. Jasmine's probably the worst, right? I thought it was going to be Snow White, but I'm pretty sure it's going to... Anyway, okay, well, what this is teaching me is that I know nothing. I know nothing about Disney princesses, which is shocking to me, frankly. Okay, well, our next princess is going to be Princess Aurora, Sleeping Beauty, and that is what we're going to be tackling next. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to get on Twitter and tell us why I'm wrong and Liz is right about Cinderella, then you can reach me at Elsa Grab the Salt.
I'm Lizbeth Ray, 555.
And you can also get in touch with us over on commonroomradio.com. We've got all of our shows listed over there, including Odd Man Out, which is currently on hiatus because in the future times when you're listening to this, I'll probably be serving like 300 people in a kitchen for summer camp. It'll be crazy and wonderful and awesome. And I really love my job, but I also love recording podcasts for you guys, which is why we're doing this. You can also get in touch with us over at commonroomradio.com, where you can see a list of all the shows we have going on over there. If you want to talk with us on Twitter about Disney Princess Deathmatch specifically, then you can use the hashtag DPDM. It's simple. It's easy to remember. I know that Deathmatch isn't 2 words, but I mean, you know, that's just what I've been using, and that's what's being used now, and that's it. There's no way to go back in time to change it. I already said it.
If you liked what you heard today, if you want to hear some more, you can support us over on patreon.com/commonroomradio. You can pledge as little as $1 a month, and every little bit helps us create more content for you. So we appreciate your support, and we look forward to bringing you great things in the future.
Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next week. Just grab one of the other headsets and put it on.
This is fine. Now that I found out that, R means
sure?
right and L means left,
Yep.
it should be better. Yeah.
Always has, I guess.